there, and welcome to the Bitcoin Takeover podcast. This is season 16, episode 65. No, it's 64, just like Mario. We are live with Alex Chepurnoy, who is a genius cryptographer and coder who's like a legend in his field, followed by all of your favorite people in the space because he was able to do some very amazing stuff. Remarkable, and he has a bunch of research papers that he published. And also have to mention that this episode is sponsored by Unstoppable Wallets, Siteshift.ai, Noans.com, Layer 2 Labs, and Bitcoin.com News. Welcome, Alex. It's really good to have you.
Oh, my pleasure to be here. So I'm just standing for a long time here. So I've discovered Bitcoin back in February 2011 and doing development from 2013. So first around Bitcoin. Then, I believe some shared this disappointment, right, of many people around Bitcoin from 11, 12, like Amir, Take, or Vitalik. So yeah, they started to explore altcoins because of some limitations in coin contractual capabilities. And so I also got into these and I've started to explore Namecoin back in 2013, mid 2013. Then used to be co-developer of NXT, the first proof of stake cryptocurrency. But yeah, after some years, I'm proof of work maximalist. After working with stake for a few years. And then I also co-founded smartcontract.com along with Sergey Nazarov and Steve Ellis, which then pivoted into Chainlink, but I left before the pivot. Then I joined IOHK, one of the founding entities behind Cardano, and did a lot of papers to discover in depth what's going on there, right? So what do we have in consensus, as well as other aspects, contractual capabilities, like clients. I've covered a little bit of privacy stuff. I helped Zcash guys, for example, was on jury for the second grant program of Zcash Foundation.
Yeah, I was looking at your Twitter. I don't know exactly why, but your microphone is cracking a bit, like there are cracking noises that come out of it. If you can switch to another one here in the Meet interface, it would be nice. What I want to mention at this point is that I spoke with Jonathan Sampolinsky, the creator of Kaspa, and during our 7-hour interview, which turned out to be the second most watched of this season, he had like 60,000 views or something overall. He told me that you are his favorite Satoshi candidate. And the reason why he said you might be Satoshi is that you are able to do something amazing by rewriting a Bitcoin client in Haskell. And you only had like 3,200 lines of code, which, according to him, is something really amazing, that you're able to compress all of that Satoshi code into something so small and elegant. When did you do
All
that?
right, but yeah, I'm not Satoshi, and I helped one journalist to find Satoshi. So and hopefully Mike is better now, right? So it's cable, I believe, which is causing some issues. And
It is better.
there is some noisy street outside. So I'm in New Delhi, and there is a road from Greater Kailash to Okla, very noisy, and my hotel is just on the road. So hopefully this noise is suppressed well, but yeah, let's see. About Satoshi. So actually we did some work with the journalist. I've checked a lot of codes of guys like Adam Beck, who is definitely not Satoshi, just by looking into the code and so on. And I'm pretty sure actually a collective uh, co- mm, collective back figure, right? So probably there were some roles there. So one guy did the code, and another white paper and forum posts. So, and yeah, I'm pretty sure one of them was Helfinia. Uh, but I'm not sure Helfinia did most of the code actually. So yeah, that's my theory, and well, I think it's perfect to have multiple theories, right? Anonymity of Bitcoin. And about rewriting and so on. So that's just about discipline. So you are constantly iterating our basically the same concepts here to get deeper and deeper. Often rewriting, formulating thoughts in form of code and rewriting and so on. Finding maybe more elegant solutions and so on. And actually, how I discovered Bitcoin, so peer-to-peer networks enthusiasts even before, and also distributed systems engineer. And so I've searched through different peer-to-peer networks back then. There were a lot of them of different kinds, and yeah, this Bitcoin, its design, so it was quite absurd, from the first look, because it's not distributed system; it's fully replicated, right? So you are replicating the same data structure over all the peers in the network, and yeah, from a distributed engineer point of view, that's quite disastrous from the first look. Then I spent few years to come up with a better design, to understand that, well, actually for Bitcoin purpose, this is the best design, right? And that's why I believe we have a lot of proof of stake, right, and other consensus protocols around. So, well, engineers are coming into the space without realizing what's the desiderata here, why coin design is made in such a way. So they're doing some work, right, without discovering first, well, what's the goal. And that's why we have a lot of consensus protocols, right, which are quite different and not achieving Bitcoin goals. So now we have such, well, very different from peer-to-peer networks designs as Solana and so on. So yeah, I'm not quite fond of all those solutions, right? Let's say to non-existent problems in the first place. But yeah, often these days people are doing these consensus protocols also to dump tokens, right? After all, which is another topic. So yeah, it wasn't the case back then. So around mid 2010, so people were quite honest. So they tried to do different consensus protocols, proof of work, proof of stake, and so on, right? And I believe they were not so greedy after all, right? And these days, well, it seems it's just about doing tokens and dumping them on retail, unfortunately.
Yeah, so you're advancing very fast with the conversation, and I really want to talk about Ergo, what it is and what it accomplishes. But I just want to understand back in 2011 when you discovered Bitcoin, what was it that attracted you to it? Was it the idea of peer to peer electronic money that you can send to anyone? Was it the promise that you can actually do much more with it and build contracts and use some of the opcodes in doing stuff that maybe was not considered by Satoshi?
All right. So, how I discovered Bitcoin, it was our Twitter. So I found Bitcoin Foundation Twitter accidentally. I believe because I was bubbled already, right, in peer-to-peer. related stuff by Twitter. So I discovered Bitcoin
Is that because you're
Twitter and
Russian and you guys, just like us Romanians, love torrenting stuff? So you're looking for peer-to-peer technologies to be able to bypass restrictions from your government?
Not quite. So actually, yeah, BitTorrent was popular, right? Because yeah, nobody loves to pay for content in Russia. Well, back then especially. But then yeah, also I was maybe quite lazy guy, right? So when you are distributed system engineer, so you need to take care of server. So my idea was, to well, have more right chat server, right? You just write some code.
Alex, what you're saying right now is muted for some reason. It's almost like there's a louder sound that covers your voice.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe street again. Not sure. So yeah. So yeah, as an engineer, I was lazy, right? So the idea of mine was to have more peer-to-peer designs to take less, to care less about servers, right? So when you have somewhat true flat peer-to-peer networks, it's serverless, right? So then you don't bother about servers. So that also was motivation to get deeper. But that's Bitcoin Foundation Twitter. It was crazy back then. Unfortunately, it's not the case now with banksters taking control over Bitcoin. But back then, like every tweet was about, central banks will disappear in 10 years. So everything on Bitcoin. So that was crazy enough to attract my attention. So I started to read, and the very original idea. So it was before smart contracts. Smart contracts, I believe, was the first wave of enlightenment. Let's say around Bitcoin, mass enlightenment. But the first wave was about money without central bank, right? So now maybe not so many people pay attention, but it's already absolutely crazy and groundbreaking idea, right? When you can have money without a trusted party, when emission is controlled just by algorithm, right? And it's not defined by any party in the system how many money would be issued, right? So that was quite revolutionary, I believe. Even that idea was enough back then to attract many people into Bitcoin.
Yeah. When I spoke with Amir, he told me that basically when he joined Bitcoin, a lot of the people who were developing on Bitcoin were interested in smart contracts and being able to build them and trying to figure out ways in which they can use this technology to build smart contracts. He told me that, for example, Peter Willey, who is like the most proficient and most active over the years developer in Bitcoin, he was very interested in this idea of contracts. And I guess the fact that we got Taproot is still like a leftover from that mindset where they were trying to figure out different ways to build contracts. So to me, it's interesting. You got attracted by the idea of replacing central banks because it seemed sort of crazy, and you also had a background in peer-to-peer networking and distributed systems. But what was it that made you stay? Because that's the other trick, right? Because you discover it, you're like, oh, this is cool. And then maybe you just move on. Because when I first discovered Bitcoin, I just thought it's sort of a stupid idea. And I did not pay too much attention to it.
Yeah, so I started to read, and why I got stick to Bitcoin and then cryptocurrency in general and still around. So I believe because there are a lot of problems to solve, right? So, when we are talking about money without central bank, right? So what is Bitcoin as an asset about, right? When we are talking about money. So as early as 2010, people realized that as electronic cash, it may be not so suitable option, right? And now it's evolved into digital gold, right? Which is not surprising at all. But then about contracts, so I believe the very basic need here is to have, possibility to do monetary expansion in trust minimized way, right? But I've come to all those definitions after many years of reading in things like different research in cryptocurrencies, cryptography, as well as monetary systems, monetary theories, and so on. So see, if you have digital gold, well, it's not working well as cash, right? I mean, for example, if you have in your pocket 1 BTC and what's equivalent now, like 90,000 USD, right? And you have to buy a house, for example. Then, if you are not stupid, you would spend fiat, right? Because why to spend Bitcoin, a deflationary asset, right? When you can spend fiat garbage instead, because it's depreciating over time. Fiat, I mean, and Bitcoin is appreciating. So that's what's making Bitcoin not so good as digital cash, right? So when you have other option, it's better to spend another option. So then what Bitcoin is good for? Proof of work cryptocurrency in general, I believe that is unstoppable kind of digital gold, right? Well, better if it's private for sure, like Monero, Zcash, right? Then you can transfer it, without attention. But if we are talking about doing cash, right? So I believe it should be done on the next level. So basically, you need for those smart contracts to do trust minimized monetary expansion, right? So to produce money maybe of slightly worse quality than digital gold, but with better elasticity. So with supply meeting demand from the real world needs, right? So I believe was motivation, but it's hard to formulate it, and it was nearly impossible back in 2010. So I believe, people spent many years to realize that, and just very few people actually, because those ideas are quite complex after all. And monetary systems in the real world, they're also overly complex, right? So people usually don't understand, for example, how money are created in a fractional reserve based systems by commercial banks, right? So often people think that's government money and so on, but most of money are created by commercial banks. We have fractional reserves, and there are a lot of other things here. How some banks are regulating this process by different means and so on. And there are a lot of levels here in money creation, money aggregates, and so on. So those things are insanely complex in the real world. So it's quite naive to think that there is some simple solution, right? Like some cryptocurrency which you can code in like a couple of months, which can solve all the problems. So you need for some simple Open extensible solution, right? And that's why you need for somewhat contracts, but you need for contracts on top of good assets. So that's where Ethereum is not so good, right? So it's allowing for unlimited contractual capabilities basically, but the base asset itself is complete disaster. So it was proof of work based, then they switched to proof of stake. They changed the emission schedule a few times. So after all, it's hard to say about quality of ETH asset itself, right? And so Bitcoin is another extreme. So it's very good base asset, but very limited contractual capabilities, right? So then the idea of Ergo was basically to do something in between, right? So good base asset, proof of work based, as well as in Bitcoin, we have strict approach to protocol upgrades. So basically forks since 2022. But then, we have additional contractual capabilities, also possibility to do cryptographic protocols as applications, right? By providing some language for cryptographic protocols developers based on Sigma protocols. With enhanced contractual capabilities, we have ability to build trust minimized monetary expansion tooling after all, right? So then hopefully, it will bring good enough money, digital cash, good based est.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, so if it's overloading, right? So a lot of concepts here, and I'm passing quickly through them. So if you have some questions, let's dig deeply now, right? So
Yeah, we'll break
the
it down
overall
into
picture
smaller
is that,
pieces
yeah,
because
please.
you took a huge leap from what you're working on Bitcoin and all the way into how you ended up in Ergo, and it's like 10 years apart, I think. And there's a lot to
15.
figure out what happened in between. One small request that I have for you right now is to retweet the stream. I sent you
All
the link
right.
because I realized that we only have like 200 views right now because you did not retweet it. Maybe we can get more. And it's also a bad time
Okay.
for the US. I think they're just waking up now. But in the meantime, let me plug a couple of ads. Bitcoin.com news is one of the places where you can read about everything that's happening in the space. And what I like about them is that they're not very US centric. They're not very pro Trump like Bitcoin Magazine, but they're not also very pro institutions like Coindesk. So it's a very interesting middle ground that you're going to find there. There are also some pieces of news about Ergo Network or Ergo Platform. If you search for that, you're going to find some. And usually I go there because I find stuff from outside of my bubble. And it's useful because nowadays Twitter to me is much less useful than it was before. I don't discover as much stuff because the algorithm put me in some sort of echo chamber where I don't see stuff that I might be interested in but is slightly outside of my field of interest. So check out news.bitcoin.com. I really recommend it. And there's also Unstoppable Wallet, which is one of the wallets that's recommended on bitcoin.org, which is like the official quote unquote website of the Bitcoin protocol where you can download Bitcoin Core. And if you go to choose your wallet and you go to the mobile section, you're going to see that Unstoppable is actually one of the most recommended ones. I'm actually going right now to bitcoin.org, choose your wallet, you go to mobile, and for Android and for iOS, you're gonna have Unstoppable, which is the best overall for control, validation, transparency, environment, privacy, and fees. It's actually, so if you look at the comparison, it's actually better at validation than Green Wallet, and it's better than Edge Wallet and BitPay and Bitter. It's sort of amazing that of all the ones that are recommended here, Unstoppable ranks the highest, and it's free for you to download, so it doesn't cost you anything. Check it out, get it from the App Store. It's on Android and iOS, Unstoppable Wallet. And I'll plug also SideShift, which is this place where you can swap between assets. If someone wants to pay you in stable coins or meme coins or something that you don't really want, you can just use SideShift, so they send the coins to SideShift and you get your Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever it is that you want directly to your wallet without having to worry about gas tokens or anything else in between. Check it out. It's called SideShift, SideEshift.ai, and it's really cool. I want to ask you, Alex, about Namecoin, because you said you worked on it in 2015. I'm actually talking with Jeremy Rand right now, who's still working on Namecoin. To me, it's surprising. It's the oldest altcoin out there. It's the one that was endorsed by Satoshi. It was supposed to be called BitNames at one point in 2010, if I'm not mistaken. And it was Satoshi's idea to make it merged mined. He said, okay, maybe that you can use the blockchain to issue domain names. How about you have like a merged mined separate blockchain, because it's not a good idea to mix with Bitcoin, and it's also not a good idea to make it compete for hash rate or just launch with a new algorithm. So just make it merged mined. And Namecoin has been around since 2011, if I'm not mistaken. It was the first altcoin that was ever launched. And I think it was also the purest in intentions. Like it solves an actual problem. What it failed to do was to give people equal chances to register domains, because people spammed it early on and registered pretty much everything under the sun. But I think it was also like ENS, right? You had to renew your domain. It wasn't one and done. Or correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, everything is correct, but also it was quite first database, right? So, well, names were just one application, but it was possible to write different key value pairs, right? And well, for these domains, they had some standard key prefix, but it was possible. Maybe there were some applications to write the different data on Namecoin. So it was the first, I believe, blockchain. Yeah, well, it was first altcoin, but also was the first blockchain with some data, right? Names mostly. So other early altcoins such as Peercoin and so on, so they did experimentation with consensus mostly, right, without touching the data layer, contract layer, and yeah, well, Namecoin did that. So it was quite interesting. So I did some tooling for Namecoin. Not sure if it was first back then. But yeah, I did some tool for extracting all the data from the Namecoin blockchain. Back then it was about 200,000 records, I believe, something like that. It was late 2013. Then, yeah, well, I thought about some applications and so on, but then discovered which was like BitShares, if you're aware of. So all those early approaches to have smart, regional smart contracts for decentralized trading and so on. But there were no smart contracts, just core features, right? So people just built core features back then. And then as generalization of all those ideas, Vitalik and other guys with him came with this Swiss army knife idea, so to have some generalized smart contract approach. But yeah, well, Namecoin is awesome. So it's actually interesting if people are still contributing to it. And I'm also fond of merged mining idea, and consider it to do some merged mined side chains also. The only issue here these days, it's about a lot of politics, right? So you need to get support from big Bitcoin mining pools. And then, yeah, well, it comes with a lot of games with those pools. You need to incentivize them enough, and yeah, a lot of games here, unfortunately. So it would be good to have maybe more open space here. So I'm also watching for BIP 30031
Oh,
by
do
Paul
you like BIP
Storz.
300?
So it's interesting, yeah. And yeah, I'm Paul Storz ideas for years about yeah, side chains and yeah, auctions for data and so on. Of interesting ideas. I'm not sure if all of them are practical, but at least yeah, the guy Paul Storz is producing a lot of interesting ideas, let's say.
Yeah, he's also sponsoring the show with Layer 2 Labs, which is his company. And he actually, so BIP 300 for many years was just an idea that he proposed. And now he actually has a software. So for anyone listening, you can go to layer2labs.com/download. And he has the software that runs on the Bitcoin Signet. So he has sidechains for Ethereum, Zcash, and a few others that you can test today.
Oh, so I need to say then that I wasn't asked to promote, well, Layer 2 Labs or Paul Storz personally, but yeah, I'm fond of his ideas. Yeah, for many years I'm following. Unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to have any discussions with him. So you mentioned Amir or Peter Wheeler, yeah. So I had many discussions with Peter back in mid 2000s, yeah. Well, in particular about yeah, possibility for certain changes in Bitcoin protocol, and then yeah, with Amir, I am trying to help with DarkFi. So I made some GitHub issues and yeah, discussed a couple of things I found in the code. Our dark ERC, but yeah, well, would be happy to discuss matched mine sidechains and so on with Paul Stotz.
I
Well,
can connect you to him if you want.
for the guy is full of interesting ideas. I have a
I wanted to ask you because the furthest I could go in terms of finding your early contributions to Bitcoin was working on BTCE and something that was called Scala client. Was that your first contribution or was that just the best known?
No, it's open source. So the earliest was some website. I don't know if you're aware of Bitcoin Wisdom.
No, that was
So
before my time.
yeah, so it was the first aggregator of data from different Bitcoin exchanges, right? So back then there were, if we are not talking about South Korea and China, there were like 3 or 4 major, no, not major, just exchanges, right? So it was BTC, MTGOX, Bitstamp, and basically it, right? So then there were some South Korean and Chinese exchanges, but no luck to deposit money there. And so there was a Bitcoin Wisdom website which did aggregation of pricing data from different exchanges. three or four of them, because but back then, because there was USDT, because of different deposit options, and yeah, because of withdrawal problems sometimes, especially with MTGOX in late 2013, there were a lot of arbitrage possibilities, right? So such websites were popular. Well, price difference was about like 10% easily between BTC and MTGOX, for example. And so even before Bitcoin Wisdom, I made my own website with aggregation of pricing data as well as news from Reddit and some other sources about Bitcoin. But I forgot the name of the website even, to be honest. Maybe I can open source it, but I need to find the code even. And so this BTC client was made like a few months after. And also in 2013, around spring 2013, I did work for some wallet with auto hedging. BTC wallets with possibility to do hedging automatically. So to have 30% of portfolio in Bitcoin, for example, and 70 in USD, right? But it wasn't open sourced, and I did work for some guys, and they didn't launch it, I believe, after all. But yeah, we had different conversations. So from them, I've got information about that first gathering of soon to be Ethereum team in Miami, for example, right? So I've got that information from those guys I worked with on that wallet with auto hedging and so on. So yeah, it was quite small community, just 3 or 4 exchanges, and yeah, a lot of crazy stuff. I don't know if you know about like Fontos pumps and so on. So BTC shoutbox, all those crazy things.
No, what I could find about you is that you did some presentations for some conferences in 2014, 2015, like FC, Financial Cryptography, and you're talking about pruning data, optimizing transaction fees, and you also had this interesting idea. I guess this was 2014 or something, or 2013, before Zerocash, the paper. I think it was during the ZeroCoin era, when you wanted to combine ZeroCoin with CoinJoin, and it was called ZeroJoin, I think.
Oh, but it was after Zcash. Uh, yeah, actually, but what's good about ZeroJoin? So it's a super simple protocol, right? And yeah, in Ergo we have Ergo Mixer, which is implemented just on application level. So basically, Mixer, but it's non-custodial, non-interactive, smart contracts based. A little bit similar to what people in Bitcoin ecosystem try to do with the sneaker protocol, but yeah, they failed to deliver it because I believe some complexities which you have when you try to implement such things as non-custodial mixers on Bitcoin. So this sneaker protocol was announced around 2020, and yeah, our work. From 2017, yeah, the very initial version, I believe, 2017. Yeah, like that. And about financial cryptography, yeah, I've attended a few times that wonderful conference, and yeah, we spent some time with very good people like Zuko or Jonathan there. They also did attend back in 2010s. It was a very pleasant atmosphere. A lot of old cypherpunks also from 2000s, 1990s, and so on. So yeah, kind of yeah. I met Adam Beck also back in 2017 there. So yeah, it was a very nice conference. Unfortunately, in recent years, so since COVID, I didn't manage to attend it again. So hopefully, I will be 26 or 27. Yeah, I would be able to join. But back in FC 2018, for example, I've presented a work about transaction, not just transaction, but fees, right, in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, showing that yeah, it would be good. Well, telling in short, it would be good to have a Demurrage, right, in Bitcoin. So some fee for storing data in UTXO set. And well, now we see some discussions in the Bitcoin community, right? Because well, there is growing uncertainty about tail emission, right? And then yeah, well, with time, we have more and more hot discussions in the Bitcoin community, as well as other communities. So in Ethereum, for example, there are discussions still since 2015 about storage rent, right? And so on. Well, other communities also discussing. And in Ergo, we have this storage rent Demurrage since day one. So we are now collecting data from the mainnet, which can be useful for other communities, hopefully, including Bitcoin. And so in Bitcoin, right, as tail emission is going to be more and more problematic for miners. Yeah, well, there are talks what to do, so to introduce additional emission or to introduce Demurrage storage rent. So I believe Demurrage is cleaner option, and also it's a better option in the presence of different kind of dust, right? It exhaust dust as well as well attempts to use Bitcoin as a data layer with inscriptions, runes, and so on, right? So I believe it's a more market-driven way to resolve all those issues, right? Than to have a lot of wars about op return size and so on. So, well, to me, well, it's better to leave all those questions to markets, right? Let markets decide. Just yeah, be built miners and users charge for storage, and then yeah, market will decide well what's reasonable there when people are using Bitcoin as storage.
Yeah,
Well, what do you think about that? So maybe you have better oversight, well, from Bitcoin community about this matter. So a lot of hot talks, but in my Twitter bubble, yeah, I'm probably catching up only with some of them.
I think a lot of people lost their minds over the last 3 years since we got the ordinal inscriptions. And it was this guy who basically figured out how to use SegWit and Taproot to create NFTs on Bitcoin, but the kind where you don't just create a token, but also have the data like the JPEG associated with it. And it was basically a year after the NFT mania, and you had a bunch of Ethereum people realizing that this is a much better and possibly more permanent way of doing tokens. So they came to Bitcoin. And a bunch of Puritans realized that this is not the way in which they want Bitcoin to be used. And they called it like a hack or something that cheats the rules. And they searched for justification to censor this, to stop it. the first reaction was like, let's hard fork away and have a new chain. I think Jimmy Song was that guy who said it. And it's insane, really. And to me, it's
Yeah.
very weird because they're opposed to having more people using Bitcoin because it's obviously not the only use case to issue these tokens. They're also gonna buy it, they're also gonna transact it for financial purposes, and I can also argue that each of these tokens, every time it gets transferred, it pays a transaction fee to the miners, so it is financial. But I don't know. It's very strange that there's this faction that got radicalized and they have their own mining pool and they have their own implementation of the Bitcoin node software, which is just a fork of Bitcoin Core. It's not a complete rewrite. And they have all of these crazy ideas like, hey, let's confiscate all the UTXOs smaller than 1,000 Satoshis. And a few years ago, this would be insane. If anyone came up with this, they would get laughed at. But these people are so desperate to prove that they're right and are so invested in this conversation that they're actually saying, oh, this is interesting. It can make my node like my UTXO set 30% smaller, so I can run this on my old Raspberry Pi. And it's insane, really. I don't know how we got here. I just know that this is stalling any meaningful progress. It's the kind of cultural war that only divides people and does not generate anything. Like they destroyed, I think, the bull market with this because they tried to compromise the censorship resistance of Bitcoin by saying we can add filters, so we can also have like a list of types of transactions that are fine, which only leads to a slippery slope where you're going to have the US government saying, hey, why don't you also enforce this list of blacklisted addresses, so your node does not broadcast them anymore. And it just leads to Bitcoin being more captured if we're going to go that path. And with the whole idea of confiscating small UTXOs, it also attacks this narrative that Bitcoin cannot be confiscated. Because once you do it with small UTXOs, what's going to stop you from resisting the pressure to do it with larger ones? You've already done it. You proved that it can work. But of course, you can also argue that Ethereum had their DAO hack moment in 2016. And a lot of people were concerned that once they rolled back the blockchain to save the investors, they would do this all the time, but they did not. It was one incident in the beginning of the network, and they did that. And afterwards, even though Vitalik was under a lot of pressure and people said, well, a lot of money was hacked from this exchange or whatever, they never actually did it. And they're taking steps towards trying to make it not possible, even if there's willingness to do it, to make it politically more difficult. So I don't know where we're going with this. I just know that we're not having any meaningful upgrade in Bitcoin. We were supposed to have some sort of covenant soft fork or upcat or something, and these were discussed for a couple of years, and every time we seemed to agree on something, there was something else that came along and distracted everyone's attention and created infighting and mistrust in the community. I think there are a lot of spooks infiltrated and just trying to make everyone hate each other.
Yeah, so a lot of political games here, right, by different parties with very different incentives and goals. So, yeah, it's kind of a gridlock, right, situation. And, it's going on for many years. So the block size civil war was about that also. The Bitcoin community did a lot of attempts to get somewhat consolidated decision, right? But then we've got into multiple forks such as Bitcoin Cash and so on. And yeah, well, that Ethereum DAO hack is also a good example because it resulted into a split between Ethereum and Ethereum Classic. And back then, just like 2 weeks after Ethereum Classic was born, I was on some podcast actually defending the idea of immutability and so on, so defending Classic. It was very fragile back then. There was a big chance of it to die before some Chinese miners started to support Classic. So there was maybe a single exchange back then supporting it and very few miners. So it was fragile, but then yeah, well, so some people organized around and well, I believe why Ethereum community avoiding rollbacks since the DAO hack is the appearance of Classic, right? So, well, there is chance any new harsh decision by Ethereum decision makers would be resulted in more forks. Well, I hope because they should have some fear, right? When they're making such decisions. And yeah, and well, going back to UTEX, so sets drama and so on. So I think you're absolutely right. So once you are showing regulators, you can filter out certain UTXOs on the blockchain, right? They will start asking questions, obviously, why you are not censoring for more, right? So why you are not filtering out UTXOs which they attributing to DPRK, for example, or hacker groups or whoever, and then more and more and more. And yeah, you made up, well, censoring like most of financial interactions on Bitcoin, right? So yeah, it's like opening Pandora box after all. And I think after all, it should be about markets deciding everything, right? So, well, UTEX sets parameters, so it could be done via this storage rent fee, right? And then having markets where miners and users decide what's reasonable to store in the UTXO set. And there are many other things there which are done in non-markets driven way on Bitcoin blockchain as well as other blockchains, right? So, for example, bootstrapping new nodes, so you are feeding them with data on a purely voluntarily basis. So I think, well, as somewhat ideal environment, we should have markets everywhere, right? So even if you just join the network, maybe other peers should provide you credits like in BitTorrent, right? So first you can download something for free, but then you need to give back blockchain data to other peers, right? So that's working nicely in BitTorrent, and I think cryptocurrency peer-to-peer networks also should adopt something like that. So yeah, it should be about markets everywhere, right? Free markets making decisions, not groups of people clashing with each other, right? This is what we see right now in Bitcoin ecosystem and
Well,
beyond.
what I see a lot in Bitcoin is people being afraid of markets and saying the markets are wrong, the markets are irrational, the markets are not maximalist or pure enough. The markets are shitcoining, right? And we don't want to have the shitcoining on Bitcoin. So you should gatekeep it. You should keep these people away. Just give them their tiny sandboxes where they can play and leave Bitcoin alone. But the question is, who's going to pay the transaction fees to pay the miners? That's the most pressing question in Bitcoin. That's the biggest uncertainty, much bigger than quantum attacks or whatever it is that people express as concerns. The one uncertainty in the design of Bitcoin is whether or not people will pay transaction fees to make up for the diminishing mining revenue. That's part of the bet that Satoshi Nakamoto made with the Bitcoin design. That once the rewards are small, and that's gonna happen every 4 years, which is 210,000 blocks, there's gonna be enough transaction fees to compensate. And the conversation was always, well, we should have small blocks and big fees, right? Like $100 fees. But we have seen that they're not sustainable. And we don't really have periods in history when people were willing to pay for that, especially when you have altcoins that can provide maybe not the same amount of thermodynamic security, but decent enough finality and like 1 cent per transaction. So I think if anything, we should be happy that more people are using Bitcoin as opposed to trying to gatekeep and say, well, it should only be used for this use case, which doesn't have too many users, by the way. And they also say that you should use Lightning and Liquid and whatever, which doesn't pay the miners in any way. It's not a
Yeah,
long-term
exactly.
sustainable solution.
Exactly. So if we are talking about network security, then empowering miners is the most critical thing, right? So then I think, well, it's worth to pay attention to, again, merged mine sidechains, right? Because they are providing additional revenue streams to miners from activities on merged mine sidechains. Well, talking about Lightning and Liquid, so I think Lightning. So I had I've been to initial presentations of Lightning back in 2015, early 2015 in San Francisco. Had some talks with Tej and so on. So well, I think the original idea is good, right? So you have the most secure off-chain cash and yeah, purely peer-to-peer based, right? So, well, I open channel with you and well, we do financial interactions. But in practice, you know, it's not working this way. So we need to communicate via hubs, right? So those liquidity hubs. So basically, uh, kind of banks, right? Then yeah, it's not so peer to peer anymore, and well, we have excessive co-utilization requirements, right? Because of these multi-hop interactions and so on. So well. I think Lightning is kind of failed, right? Well, I hope I wouldn't be hated for stating this, but I don't see much adoption of Lightning, right? So it's still very limited. I think by design, the Lightning is limited. So it's worth to explore more options here, right? Maybe with somewhat minimally trusted. So that's what's I'm designing for Ergo. So having some minimally trusted watchtowers which cannot steal your funds, for example, or intervene in well, financial interactions between peers, but without tracking off-chain nodes, for example, right? And well, so such systems would be better in practice than pure peer-to-peer. I am also fond of those new designs such as Fedimint, Screed Cache, Cashew. So I think, well, we need for many designs here in off-chain cache, right? And then time will show which ones are attractive to real world users, basically to streets around the globe. But it will take a long time, it seems, right? And well, it's hard to predict. And well, probably, yeah, after a long time to be taken, it wouldn't provide much value to miners still, right? So it's a thing which is bringing value to users mostly. And for miners, the most attractive way, if we are not touching the core protocol at all, is to develop merged mine sidechains, right? But then we need for some changes in the core protocol again to make sidechains more attractive, right? Like those BIPs 3.0, 3.01. So yeah, it's kind of lock, right, on multiple levels, it seems.
I agree with you. I'm not sure if I like. I mean, I do get the appeal of cashew and Fedimints and stuff like this, but it sort of defeats the purpose. Like, why do we have Bitcoin in the first place? What is Bitcoin? Well, it's a decentralized way to do Chaumian and eCash. And then people come and they say, well, how about we build Chaumian and eCash on top of Bitcoin? Which is centralized, it's pretty private, it's scalable, but it's not Bitcoin. It's not censorship resistant, it doesn't have the same qualities. Of course, it's much better than ETFs or whatever paper Bitcoin institutions are making nowadays. But we're supposed to scale this to allow anyone to be able to use it. But it seems like there's like an asterisk, like Bitcoin is for everyone as long as you can pay for it. If you can't pay for it, you're gonna get like a second class experience, which relies on banks and custodians.
All right, but it's somewhat extreme view also, right? So maybe you can have something in between. So you may have possibility to pay with Bitcoin, but in most cases it's just too expensive, right? And then you go to slightly worse rails, right? Like Chaumian off-chain cash, and using it because it's cheap, right? And in most cases, it does work. And if you are doing micropayments, for example, then somewhat compromised security is not that an issue, right? I mean, if you have lost like a few dollars uh, in some off-chain cash, then yeah, it's pretty okay, right? It's not that terrible, but yeah, if you are moving like thousands or millions to overseas, for example, then yeah, you have this uncensorable layer one. So that's not that bad, right? After all, and yeah. Well, you just need to take care about basic things such as well security of mining, so well security budget for miners, then somewhat contractual capabilities to give developers a chance to play with different off-chain schemes, as well as on-chain derivatives, trust minimized derivatives, right? And different off-chain schemes with different security guarantees, different trust assumptions, and so on, right? And then, yeah, well, markets will choose what's viable and what's not. When you have just well, contractually poor system where people are just running rune-based meme coins, for example, that's worse, right? Because, well, here we have money of a worst kind, actually, some meme coins. Most of them are pure garbage, right? If we are considering them as money.
Well, yeah,
So,
but they're users still. These people who
Yes.
talk about keeping Bitcoin for financial purposes, they're not transacting. They're just holding. So they're not paying the miners. Someone has to.
Right, so someone has to. So then, yeah, well, solution is to go away from those disastrous forms of money, such as meme coins, right, to somewhat more reasonable, even maybe having less security as Bitcoin, on-chain Bitcoin, right? But then you need to change the protocol, right? And here, well, it seems the community is stuck, right? And so, well, in Ergo, everything was made. So support for off-chain protocols and trust minimized on-chain derivatives and so on. So it was made before the launch, right, to avoid those wars and to bring markets to everywhere. Because all those issues were clearly seen back in 2015, 16, right? So this block size civil war, the first civil war, it clearly shown, right, the limits of extending the core protocol. So back in 2010, 11, there were some hard forks of Bitcoin, right? Quite drastic changes in opcodes and so on. So it was time to innovate quickly. But with time, you know, as system is growing and very different parties are joining with different agendas, different goals, different incentives. So you are getting into gridlock, right? So then it's better to develop something full-fledged, but it wasn't possible to do that back in Satoshi times, right? Simply because it was too novel thing.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for people who are experimenting with stuff. And they're also using something which is Bitcoin compatible. Like, I do want to ask you if Ergo is something that Bitcoin can just take and use at some point in the future, or which parts of it.
So I think many ideas can be taken, such as this Demurrage, right? So, well, it's already in play on the mainnet. So the data have been collected and then maybe used against, well, Bitcoin data to do some estimations. So Bitcoin UTXO set. It would be a quite drastic change to the Bitcoin protocol, but it seems so well. Maybe it's unavoidable, right? After all, so and it would be better than other alternatives. They would be even more drastic, such as changing emission, for example, right? Because well, it's better to consider emission to be set in stone, right? Otherwise, one of the main propositions of Bitcoin would be broken. Then, yeah, there were a lot of proposals for Bitcoin, such as Bitcoin NG, to introduce better utilization of bandwidth as well as fast information. So in Ergo, we are going to introduce subblocks in very soft forkish right? So subblocks are basically kind of micro blocks between the main blocks, which are backed by lower difficulty. So basically like mining shares, but bringing transactions. So we have faster confirmations and better with utilization with them. But it's soft forkish, and I believe it can be then be brought to Bitcoin without hard forks, right? So in a soft forkish ways. So yeah, we've studied the Bitcoin science of soft forkability for years, right, and adopted in Ergo we have the same after all. So hard forks are avoided at any cost. To avoid splits in the community, right? So when I used to be an XT co-developer, so they did hard forks like crazy, like every few months, one hard fork after another. And that's how community got destroyed after all with endless wars, right? So over features brought by those hard forks. So hard forks, yeah, are quite toxic in many cases if you have diverse enough community, right? So it's better to avoid them. Then yeah, this sublocks. About contractual capabilities and other things, there could be another aspect of Ergo design which can be brought back into Bitcoin, which is NIPOPOS, non-interactive proof of work. Right, they're quite superior for building super efficient SPV clients. Right, so if you want to build some super efficient SPV clients connected, for example, via LoRaWAN, so just long range radio waves, or well, in some remote area, instead of having all the headers downloading them, you can download just very few basically headers of special kinds, and they're forming proof. And then you have the same well, security guarantees as when you download all the headers, right? So instead of downloading megabytes of headers, you download just like 100 kilobytes of this NIPOPO proof, and then yeah, you can ask for proofs of transactions, right, against well, the recent headers you have after processing the proof. And initially the team which worked with us, Professor Kias and his PhD students, so they got those results for Bitcoin, right? Then it was implemented in Ergo, and then they also did somewhat implementation for Bitcoin Cash, and they did that in just velvet forking way, so without need to log on miners side, so without the need for majority of miners to support that. So just some miners, it was some big Bitcoin Cash mining pool actually just writing this proof-related data into Coinbase transactions. Just one hash Merkle root to be written into Coinbase transactions. So yeah, this could be adopted for Bitcoin, right? Because, well, I know a lot of guys in the Bitcoin community which are also playing with mesh networks, with getting Bitcoin data from satellites, right, and so on, transmitting Bitcoin-related data over long-range radio waves and so on. So yeah, for those folks, it would be very nice to have ultra efficient, secure SPV clients. It would be much better than to trust some service just. And yeah, well, we can think about more things here. So yeah, there are such things, as I explained, and more which can be brought back into Bitcoin and without hard forks even. Because I understand, and you also have understanding that it's not possible to hard fork the Bitcoin protocol, right? These days, no chance to improve it this way.
I think there's gonna be a hard fork to fix a timestamping issue, which is many years away. But that one can be terrible if we don't fix it. And also agree that for adding quantum resistance, it would be more elegant if we just hard forked and gave everyone the chance to claim their UTXOs, as opposed to soft forking, and then there's a race of just being able to use the available block space to move your coins from the old address types to the new quantum resistant address types, and that leaves behind a lot of vulnerable coins. I don't know.
Oh, that's true. So for quantum resistance, hard fork is a much cleaner option. But yeah, I would like to see how quantum resistance got deployed on Bitcoin blockchain. Because yeah, you know there are a lot of post quantum schemes to start with, and so on, and then the deployment. I think there will be a lot of hot discussions. Well, maybe already are, but yeah, well, it would be very challenging, right, to consider some deployment option suitable for everyone here.
Even choosing the signature types is difficult because all of them are much larger than what Bitcoin is currently using with ECDSA. So you're going to have much larger transactions, which maybe for those who want high fees in Bitcoin are good, like Lamport or Winternits or whatever, but I don't know. It's very delicate. It You're going to occupy much more block space with your post quantum transactions.
Right. So hash-based signatures are big, and yeah, lattice-based are quite risky, I believe, and yeah, also bigger. So yeah, there are no so good options here, right? So that there is no some magic silver post bullets which can just replace the elliptic curves based cryptography with something new, right? And also without getting a lot of drawbacks such as bigger signature size or well quite new cryptography which can be broken after all in few years. So well as happened a lot with earlier lattice based schemes and so on, so on, so on. So yeah, well, post quantum security is a very challenging topic for blockchains specifically.
It is. And I think the only proposal that we have that's being actively improved and discussed upon is BIP 360. But I think overall, people should understand the risks of soft forking and why it's more elegant to hard fork. And if we're gonna hard fork, we can also fix some issues that developers are currently having. But to be honest, the more you think about it, the more you're gonna invent an altcoin, I think. Because a lot of people will not want to claim their UTXOs and consider that to be the real Bitcoin. They will just claim their UTXOs and dump it.
Right. So a lot of mess here. And yeah, so for hard fork, there is a blog post by Matt Corallo, Grid Consensus Cleanup. Have you seen that? So it's basically a collection of different ideas, different fixes needed, which require for hard fork specifically. So yeah, maybe one day it makes sense to do some kind of final uh, uh, hard fork, right? With post quantum security and all those items from the grid consensus cleanup list. But yeah, it's a quite messy topic, doing hard forks. But yeah, well, doing soft forks endlessly is also bringing a lot of complexity. So in Ergo, we avoid soft fork, hard forks. Also, so we are trying to do soft forks all the time. But yeah, after all, it could be resulted in the same kind of grid consensus cleanup list, right? Let's see how it goes. So yeah, it's messy. It's always messy to especially for engineers, right? So usually they don't bother in other fields about breaking things. So they just telling users to upgrade. But here, when you have nobody's system, right? How can you tell some anonymous entities over to internet? To all of them to upgrade the nodes. It's impossible even to find them, right?
Yeah, these are very hard problems. But it's good to discuss them. It's good for people to think about them. It's much better than waiting until there's an emergency and then we have to make decisions on the spot and be like, oh, this one makes most sense. Let's accept this. And that's how we end up with more problems.
Right. Yeah, that's true. So yeah, so sometimes after all, you can postpone and then just have somewhat emergency fork, which would be more disastrous. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we have a term for that in Bitcoin. It's bike shedding. It was used for all of these Covenant soft forks, especially CTV, when we seemed to get so close to agreeing that it's good, and then someone would come up with a new excuse like, what if this is not the best way to do it? What if we can have a rewrite that also includes this and also improves lightning and blah blah blah? And that would take another 6 months, and we had a lot of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, so community is always bombed with new proposals, basically, right? And yeah, having to discuss them. Yeah, yeah, that's interesting, and that's very challenging, right? To live in such environments and to continue to develop protocols in such environments.
You have a question from Jonathan Sampolinski.
Right? Yeah.
He's curious about your current tech stack. But before I ask it, let me plug the last sponsor of this episode. It's not last, it just happened. I picked the random order, but it's noonce.com, which is a peer-to-peer marketplace. It's built by Ray Youssef, who previously did Paxful, and he left the project because he was not happy with a US-based company and all the regulations and all the limitations that he had to face. So he created Noonce, Noones, which is focused on empowering people from the global south. That's what he calls it. So you'll find a lot of users from Africa, the Middle East, and South America. And by choosing to trade on Noonce, you're empowering these people to get access to coins that, even if they're volatile and have like a 10% dip on the daily basis, they are still more stable than their fiat currencies. And they're useful for a lot of people worldwide in ways that you can't even imagine. So check out their peer-to-peer marketplace. They also have a gift card marketplace, and they also have a spot market and a debit card if you're into that. But personally, I'm not a big fan. Check it out. It's noonce.com. Now, Alex, Jonathan wants to know if you're still using your old version of Nokia, and I think he means the Haskell version of Nokia.
Yeah, so still using button phones. They're quite perfect, I believe, right?
Oh,
The,
your daily phone is a Nokia?
it's yeah, it's a bit away. So it's Philips now, yeah, with a good battery, so I can forget about charging for 1 or 2 weeks. Yeah, because I'm not using it much. Also, it's also not distracting you. So I had smartphone for a couple of years, but then realized, it's distracting you all the time. Yeah, as well as bringing a lot of surveillance and yeah, also discharging all the time. So not so convenient even. So yeah, button phones quite superior in my opinion. But yeah, that's maybe an engineer's perspective, right? So when you have a few laptops and yeah, some tablets and so on, so maybe you don't need for smartphone even. When you are not on the way, you have some device you are at anyway. And when you are on the way, it's better to take rest, just not to be around the screen. And so, yeah, well, my greetings to Jonathan. Last time I've seen Jonathan back in 2017 maybe. So we discussed some ideas regarding to Casper, but there was no such name back then even. And yeah, well, the ideas were not finalized also. And yeah, I'm tracking Casper development. So about my tech stack, so it's Scala, Steel, and also Rust. And well, for Rust, I'm checking some repositories around from time to time, including Rust implementation of Casper. Now the reference one. A lot of interesting ideas there about how to make a high performance peer-to-peer network. And yeah, another repository which I'm checking regularly progress there is DarkFi, but unfortunately it's hard to contribute and participate in discussions even there. So I proposed Amir and guys to investigate some things there in regards with potential issues, vulnerabilities. I also made one issue in the repository. So hopefully I can find time to do more, but it's hard to find time to do anything meaningful outside of Ergo development. But for Casper, yeah, I'm watching for development there also. And yeah, there are a lot of interesting challenges there. So when it's network which is producing 10 blocks a second, how can you do complex contracts there? So I would be happy to discuss such things with Jonathan and guys. And sorry, I'm talking a lot. So anything else in the question not covered? So tech stack and my phone. What else is there?
I think that was the question from Jonathan. And I'm gonna connect you guys. If you haven't met since 2017, I think
Yeah.
it's
So
been almost 9 years.
I have his. So the issue is that I've used email, which is now not available. That's IO mailbox. So yeah, well, if you can pass Jonathan's mail to me, yeah, it would be a pleasure to me to continue our discussions
He's the
from
one
all
who told me
times.
I should really, really interview you and said that to him, you're Satoshi.
Oh, I'm obviously not, but why? Oh, because I'm not that kind of developer. So there was a good Amir's post on that over Twitter, I believe. So Satoshi is not some mystical figure, just like I don't know some saint who appeared from a dark forest, then told some inspirational things and then disappeared again in a dark forest. So he was C++ developer after all, and that there are certain things there which are very specific, very unique. So, for example, how does he work with stack and so on. So, without going much into details, so you can figure out that Satoshi wasn't, for example, a corporate developer, right, working overnights on Bitcoin. So the guy is kind of a hacker, from what can you see in the code, and also kind of OG developer from this Hungarian notation and other things. So yeah, quite unique style of development, and uh, not so common for most of C++ developers. Right. So I've shown Satoshi's code to some professional C++ developers. So I'm not doing C++ code since 2006. Right. So I'm not so proficient in all that stuff nowadays. But yeah, so from what I've got told and from my understanding, yeah, so he was kind of hacker, right? Not a corporate developer, at least. I don't know if it's helpful in finding Satoshi. I also don't know why Satoshi. So so to me, it's perfectly fine to have anonymous developer and just discuss ideas, right? Because after all, ideas do matter, not personality of Satoshi. Who knows? Maybe his personality is not so good as his ideas.
That's
But
exactly what Satoshi would say, right?
yeah. So but who knows? Maybe yeah, he's kind of very good personally also. It's better maybe to leave all those questions unresolved, right, and concentrate on ideas just. What do you think about that? Because as a podcast host and as kind of a KOL guy, so you are getting a lot of attention, right? Of talking about Satoshi and possible candidates for Satoshi and so on. But does it worth it after all to look for Satoshi candidates?
So I've been doing this for almost 7 years now. I don't even know what KOL means. I've seen it a few times. I'm still not sure what it means, but Satoshi is usually a good topic because it shows basically how people think and how they approach it. Like there are people who look at patterns in speech and they search for people who talk like that or type like that, and there are people who look at the code. And the only reason why I mentioned it is that Jonathan mentioned it and said, "This guy is my Satoshi," as in you, because he respects the kind of work that you're doing and he likes your implementation in Haskell in 3,600 lines of code. He says that's something that only Satoshi can do. So maybe it's an inside joke, but you also said something interesting at the beginning of this episode that you are sure that Adam Back is not Satoshi.
Right. Because I've seen his C++ code of about the same time, and yeah, it's totally different, right? So that there are some things which you can modify in your coding habits to hide your identity. But I believe there are some things which you cannot hide, right? After all, and so yeah, well, from that, I think Adam Beck is not Satoshi, but he was around because after all, it was quite small circle, right? And like half of that circle attended financial cryptography back in 2000s, actually. Going back to financial cryptography. And going back to Jonathan, so I've seen a lot of rumors that Jonathan is Satoshi. So he appeared when Satoshi disappeared and so on. But you know, actually, a lot of people appeared when Satoshi disappeared. So that's not kind of argument, maybe because yeah, so Satoshi disappeared when explosive growth of Bitcoin movement started, right? So
When
by
WikiLeaks
that,
started accepting Bitcoin, that was kind of it.
yeah, so it was the first explosive moment, right, in the Bitcoin community growth. Yeah, the WikiLeaks moment exactly. And so, yeah, but by that principle, you can find a lot of Satoshi candidates, you know. Uh, but yeah, well, Jonathan's work is inspirational anyway, and a lot of great ideas. Yeah, some of them you guys discussed over the podcast. So I think after all, ideas do matter, right? Not personas. Yeah.
I have a question from your history, which relates to NXT, which back in 2014 seemed like it's gonna be a very big deal. And it turned out to not be. And I just want to point out that in 2014, we had the so called Bitcoin 2.0 movement, where you had Counterparty, you had Mastercoin, you had BitShares, you had NXT, and you also had like an early idea of Ethereum. And of all of these protocols, the only one that became successful over the years is Ethereum. But it's very counterintuitive because at the time, Ethereum was just a bunch of 19-year-olds acting like they're professional coders and saying they're gonna do something general purpose. And NXT seemed to be built by actually seasoned developers, guys with gray hair who seem to have actual experience.
Yeah, so there were a lot of very skilled developers. Well, starting with Jean-Luc Picard, some anonymous guy, but very strong Java developer and so on. The problem of NXT was its bootstrapping, right? So it was the first proof of stake cryptocurrency, and it was one of the earliest ICOs. And how it was made, some guy just made announcement on Bitcoin Talk, fundraising announcement, and he raised some Bitcoins. I've forgotten how many from like 20 people, right? And then the whole initial stake, the whole distribution was spread around just 50 guys, 50 nicknames on Bitcoin Talk, right? So maybe less people after all. Maybe half of them were about the same person. Who knows, right? But the distribution was very bad. So I believe that was one of the reasons. Another was this crazy founder, come from beyond, also known as BC Next, also known as Sergey Ivanchiglo. So then he founded Yota, and now he is behind Kubik, right? And the guy is always doing some kind of trash show. So it was also the case back then. But also, endless forking, as I explained before. Many people left NXT community because of endless hard forking. So there were big whales and developers, because big parties left the community after some forks, just because of disagreement with developers pushing for them. That was after I left, actually, in 2015. I left closer to the end of 2014. But yeah, NXT was big, so it was number 3 in coin market cap back in June 2014. And yeah, we had coin market cap already for a few months, and yeah, NXT was number 3 there. I believe it was the case with BitShares and so on, right? So before big ICOs, the distribution was problem for proof of stake cryptocurrencies, such as BitShares and NXT and so on. Then for Mastercoin, it was about complexities of building on top of Bitcoin for counterparty Mastercoin and so on. By the way, I've seen some counterparty revival recently. So some tweets from Adam Kronstein, which is quite interesting to see revival 10 years after. But then what was good about Ethereum and what's maybe not well understood. So, well, in the first place, they had the first big ICO, right? And that actually attracted a big army of supporters to the Ethereum movement. And the second thing was proof of work mining. And even more, Ethereum was very successful in maintaining ASIC resistant mining, right? And I believe small miners actually did a lot for Ethereum without efforts being recognized even. So I believe the initial wave of DeFi adoption, it was mostly about miners using such primitives as maker, DAI, right? So CDP-based stablecoin to avoid selling Ethereum during those harsh days of crypto winter of 2019-20, right? So before DeFi summer, right? So it was about small miners mostly who started using DeFi out of real needs, such as preserving ETH back, but having possibility to pay bills still, right? By using CDPs to mint stable coin and then pay electricity bills with stablecoin while keeping Ethereum backs intact, waiting for crypto winter to be over. And they also supported network by a lot of other means. So Ethereum had tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of miners, right? From very small scale, like 1 or 2 rigs on balcony, to very huge mining farms in China of like 100,000 GPUs. So yeah, it was a huge movement, unfortunately not recognizable, right? And after all, the controlling parties, so developers fight them. I think this was very unfortunate for Ethereum movement at home.
I also want to ask you, you mentioned miners and you also mentioned that you're a fan of merged mining. And also, your project Ergo is also using proof of work mining. What is it about proof of work that makes it better than any other proposal that was presented later and that fascinates other developers nowadays?
Okay, so it's ASIC resistant, right? So still we don't have ASICs in the network. Other than that, so it's very classic. So we did avoid some experimental things on purpose, such as proof of useful work and so on. So yeah, it's quite popular trend these days, but still a lot of open questions around proof of useful work. And back then, Ergo network was launched back in 2019. So yeah, it was very uncharted territory, right, to explore. And so yeah, other than that, yeah, so it's simple GPU-oriented mining, which I think is perfectly fine when you are building a kind of digital gold. Well, so the idea here is to have digital gold also, well, with possibilities to have on-chain with minimized trust, off-chain cache schemes, and so on, right? So to fill the gaps left by Bitcoin, basically. But then what else? So yeah, it's pretty classic and straightforward proof of work, and also still ASIC resistant. So many proof of work currencies after Ergo went into different roads by doing ASIC friendly algorithms, right? With some novel proof of work algorithms. But yeah, well, Ergo is standing on ASIC resistance.
But isn't it difficult to stay away from ASIC resistance and try to discourage it? Because at some point, someone will figure out how to make an ASIC for this algorithm, and then you'll have to change it to something else.
Yeah, so ASICs always possible, right? The only question is about advantage. So Ethereum was extremely good here. So we adopted some things from Ethereum, some novel, some inherited from Equihash of Zcash, just with more aggressive parameters and so on. So yeah, well, hopefully ASICs won't provide well significant advantage, right? And that's enough. So in Ethereum, for example, they had ASICs around the time of switching to proof of stake, but ASICs had just like 30 or 40% of hash rate, which is quite okay, right? So still GPU miners were around and made money, supported the network. So such mix is, I think, perfectly fine, right? When you have ASICs along with GPUs, FPGAs, and so on still.
Yeah, to me, it's very interesting because I think there was so much effort to replace proof of work industry wide. And at some point, it seemed like proof of stake is the future, and everything that's not Bitcoin and maybe a handful of others are not going to be proof of work anymore. But I see a resurgence and people rediscovering it and saying, wait a minute, this is actually good. This makes sense. It leads to a fair distribution of the currency. It actually gives like a base price for the currency because you have to consume electricity in order to produce it. And of course, you can call that the Marxist theory of labor value, which assumes that if you spend this amount of money building something, then it must cost at least that, which is a fallacy. It will be the market that decides. But it's still a psychological factor when people understand that it takes an expenditure of electricity to produce the currency. Like, what do you think about this? How do you approach philosophically proof of work?
Yeah, so more or less in this way. So I think, yeah, it's kind of class of hard assets, right? So you need to buy. So there is no free Bitcoin, right? And there is no free Ergo. So miners are always buying, right, new tokens with electricity, right? So you are basically converting one kind of money, kind of asset, right? Electricity to another kind of asset. Via some mechanism which is pretty much like an auction, which is working like an auction, right? So you put bits with ASICs or GPUs, right? And it's a randomized auction, right? So everyone has a chance, but a chance is getting higher if you buying more bits, basically. So it's also kind of lottery, right? So the more tickets you are buying, GPUs or ASICs, the more chances to get new tokens. But you need to buy, right, those tickets with electricity. And then, yeah, it's about fair distribution, right? Which is a very attractive topic, I believe, again, into 2025, because we do witness. I don't know if you are following that or not, but if you are on crypto Twitter heavily, then you should follow. We have a lot of VC racks or team racks in 2025, basically, right? So recently it was Sahara AI, so VCs did dump on retail immediately after VC unlock, right? And that's the case that does happen often in 2025. So a lot of tokens and proof of stake networks were suppressed heavily price-wise with VCs and teams, right? So it's kind of crazy these days how they dump on retail, and retail is now understanding those games, right? And I see more and more hate towards VCs and yeah, also team allocations on crypto Twitter. So yeah, then the revival of proof of work is inevitable, right? In this environment of distrust and environment of rug pulling, all those nasty events we do witness regularly this year. But then just very recently, I think there is also another trend which could emerge. So have you heard about denial of service attacks on Sui and Solana?
I know that
This is very...
Solana is like a shit show which collapses well, at least a few times a year. You hear that they go back to Discord to find consensus. I don't know anything about
Yes.
Sui.
Yeah, so but wait, so the scrap collapsed just because of some, popular products being launched and so on. So it wasn't about active attacks, some malicious attacks on the network, just crappy network per se, right? But for a few days now, they have intentional denial service attack. So Solana as well as Sui, and so Sui got affected heavily from what I've seen our crypto Twitter. And then there is another attractive thing about proof of work. So here you have permissionless access, right? So anyone can join. And it's also about unpredictable nature of block generation, right? So you cannot predict who will generate next block. And in Solana, for example, it's known, right? So it's known ahead of time who will block, and then you can target exactly this validator with denial of service attack, right? So you need to do DOS attack against one node at a time, right? Basically, which is quite different security from trying to DOS the whole peer-to-peer network, which is not feasible, I believe, if we are talking about big networks such as Bitcoin or Ergo even. But when next validator is predictable, and actually in many proof of stake protocols, it's the case. So then you need to do attack against the next validator just, right? So it's quite simple actually to perform such attacks. So it's a very new thing somehow. I don't know why, because I'm predicting such things for years, right? So maybe it's because it's quite depressive atmosphere now, twice and so on, right? And so in such depressive atmosphere, I believe we will see more and more cases when proof of stake networks and tokens would attack each other, right, in order to pull liquidity from competitors. So then it would be not so friendly atmosphere, but actually, originally there was understanding. So when I came into the space, there was understanding that you are building for war, right? So back in 2012, it was quite expected. So we had talks all the time that, in few months, regulators will shut down all the centralized exchanges, all three of them, and we are going back to underground, right? Just using local bitcoins to on-ramp and off-ramp and so on. And these days, it's quite extreme on the other side, right? So people don't quite understand that cryptocurrency networks should be resilient, should be peer-to-peer, and so on. So it's okay for many so-called investors to knowingly buy some trash, which is not decentralized at all, just in desperate attempt to see it's growing quickly, right? So it's a totally different mindset, but I think now if the depression will continue, we would see much more attacks, right? And then it will be normal. It will be getting back to original vision when it was assumed that cryptocurrency networks are built for war.
Also, so I want to ask you some rapid fire questions about Ergo, like some parameters that you chose for the network, because it's always curious, like what kind of block times you have, like what's the block size, how you approach smart contracts and stuff like this. So I want to ask you like a quick succession of questions, but before that, I just want to end this chapter of your past and what you've been doing with papers and stuff, because you also work with IOHK, which is the company started by Charles Hoskinson. And that guy is quite a character. Like, if what they say about him is true, that he was working on Ethereum telling people that he's Satoshi and that he was fighting in Vietnam and jumped from a helicopter. I think that's in a book. And I'm curious, what was it like to work with this guy?
Oh, actually, I haven't heard any crazy stories from him. So, he was in Bitcoin Foundation. Know about that or not really? So he was director of education in Bitcoin Foundation,
I never knew
and
that.
then yes, Yeah, so in early days we discussed a lot of things such as his past in Bitcoin Foundation, then BitShares. So he was in original BitShares team along with Dan Larimer and Li Xiaolai, and then left Ethereum. But I don't know. I haven't heard any crazy things to be honest. So yeah, he was very picky about Ethereum Foundation decisions, but from what I've seen, Charles was always very accurate. So that's why he left BitShares and then Ethereum. So he left Ethereum just before ICO, right? And he left BitShares also during some concerns about fundraising and so on. So yeah, he also made some long Reddit posts around mid 2010s, explaining well why, in his opinion, the young guys, Ethereum guys, probably will go to jail, right? Because of for financial decisions they made in the foundation. But I think that's quite reasonable approach, right? So when you are coming to this industry with knowledge, right, in legal or financial sphere, so it's everything crazy here, right, in cryptocurrencies, and it was crazy all the time. So you always expect all the things to get collapsed or shut down here, but somehow it's not the case, which is also quite surprising. So yeah, Charles was always very accurate about such things. Yeah, which I think is reasonable, right? But it's probably the industry which is crazy. Yeah, about all those stories, Vietnam and so on. Yeah, I haven't heard anything like that, and we spend
I
actually a
think
lot
it
of
was
time to
Afghanistan, to be honest. I only said
Afghan.
Vietnam because there's a story about him going to Creedence Clearwater Revival concerts,
Right.
and those were happening in the 70s. Like, I don't think he was even alive to see those, but he was talking about them like he was there to people in the Ethereum team. Maybe none of this is true, and it's just some
Yeah,
character
strange. So
assassination
I
or
don't know.
whatever.
So we had a lot of talks back in 2015, 16. So I don't know about the current moment, but back then, so he had quite appealing views to me. He was also proponent of free markets, freedom of economic interactions, like unlimited freedom and so on. Yeah, he was supporting all those ideas, and that's already So I don't know much about Credence Clearwater, but he's younger than me, so it actually I've seen his documents at some point. It's I don't know, it's somewhat crazy story, but I don't know details, to be honest. So about IHK, so I was number 3 employee there, and it was actually very exciting quite stories. Before cryptocurrencies, many cryptography professors uh, were very poor. So I heard some crazy stories that some professors, even top ones in the US, had to pay PhD students out of own pockets, right, to just continue research to just continue researching cryptography and making progress. Eli Ben Sasson, for example, yeah, he also wasn't recognizable, right? Famous and rich before cryptocurrencies, and yeah, the whole space was very poor financially, right, and also not recognizable. And then with cryptocurrencies, the situation got much better, and now, well, a lot of professors and yeah, former PhD students in cryptography are working on very good positions, right, in different cryptocurrency-related entities. And well, one of pioneers here was Charles with IO. So he started to go after well-known people in cryptography and offer them money, right? Well, for this very poor field, very good money to attract them into cryptocurrency-related research, right? And that's how we met Jonathan, by the way. Charles proposed Jonathan and Aviv Zahar some grants for developing those ideas about Spectre and so on. So some earlier versions of DEC protocols resulted into Casper, right? So initially we discussed things like IO giving them grants, and then doing implementation of Spectre, some experimental implementation of Spectre inside IO and so on. So it was hard to work with Israeli universities, though, so we didn't manage to get this done, unfortunately. But yeah, well, it was quite exciting time, and a lot of efforts were put by IO people and Charles personally to bring top-level research in cryptocurrency space, right? Because before it was mostly anonymous guys on forums making some claims, then yeah, have luck to find good ideas to separate them from bad ones and so on. And so yeah, around 2014, 15, finally we got some good research, some papers. Back then I read papers for breakfast, basically read all of them. And yeah, there were a lot of very good in formalizing cryptocurrencies and proposing new ideas based not on, just something unknown driving some anonymous guys on forums, but yeah, having formalized approach to getting new ideas and implementing them. So yeah, those times were quite exciting, and I also did some papers in IO, and also, yeah, I believe contributed something to the space with that.
You're very modest, and I like it. And I want to ask you about Ergo because obviously you took some ideas and you put them together in a layer one. What is, for example, the block size in Ergo? Like how many transactions can you fit, and what is the block time? How quickly are the blocks being discovered by miners?
All right, so there is no fixed block size in Ergo, so can vote on increasing or decreasing it. All right, so the whole idea here was to have flexible parameters whenever possible, right? So to be decided via miners vote, because after all, it's miners who own the protocol, right? So when a developer is considering some parameter as good, right? I mean, often it's a very incorrect decision, and things are changing at the time, like bandwidth and so on. So yeah, then it's better to give power to miners to decide that, right? So basically bringing markets to those parameters also. For block time, it's 2 minutes. So it was based on some research papers from 2014, 15. So the idea is to have very secure, conservative parameters for global network where you have multiple hops from Argentina to China, for example, right? And you need to account for those propagation effects. And so the idea is to have the time fixed and to develop other techniques which are going to deploy such as subblocks, right? Which can be seen as something like Bitcoin NG or maybe even DAG protocol, but there is no a real DAG here in subblocks. And yeah, also those ideas, yeah, they are quite to actually a lot of papers on how to build high performance proof of work protocol. So going back to I'm sorry, it's not so quick then, right? Going back to discussion of proof of work and proof of stake. So I believe proof of stake was popular because of promises of building better performance, right? But actually, proof of work is the most performant protocol because there is no need to exchange any information before block generation, right? So you are just working on your own. You are doing work, and then you propagating block immediately, generating it. So it's efficient protocol in regards with network utilization. And Ethereum shown that clearly. So they promised to increase BPS, if I'm not mistaken, but same, right? So it's still one block in 12 seconds, and well, Caspa is doing more, for example, with proof of work, and well, Ethereum is doing less with proof of stake. So it's not that proof of work is worse performance. It's actually better than most of proof of stake algorithms. So sorry for a long reply.
No, it's fine. I'm also curious what's the mining algorithm called and for how long you think it's gonna be ASIC resistant. I think you're muted.
Oh, my bad. I'm muted. Sorry. So it's called Autolycos, some Greek name, and we have Greek names everywhere in Ergo. So Ergo also a Greek term which does mean work. So that there is a Latin translation which is known therefore, but in Greek that does mean work. Just Ergo means work. Then. Yeah, about ASIC resistance. So it's hard topic. So I had some discussions with engineers from Bitmain, so former and present, yeah, Bitmain folks. It's possible to find them around. And so it's always possible to do ASIC. So somehow it did ASIC for Monero even, right? But it's just about few processors connected with joint memory or something like that. So I don't know much about details, so it's not much advantage our just using CPUs. And so similarly as I described, Ethereum also was good. So there were ASICs, but without well, some superior advantage over FPGAs or GPUs. So from what know, well, for such algorithms as Ergo has, there is needs of output of like 20 or 30 million USD per year to ASICs. But then it's also the question of advantage, right? And it's according to Bitcoin engineers, it's not clear, right? And if they can not tell this in advance, then probably other people around also cannot do this. So hopefully advantage ASICs will appear, won't be that impressive. And then, yeah, the idea is to stick to this particular Autolycus algorithm anyway, right? Because, well, changing algorithms all the time, like Monero or Firo, for example, did, so yeah, it's also quite messy. And we also have some proof of work based protocols such as NIPOS, this superior SPV protocol, and it's quite messy to change algorithm on, and you're considering also such things as NIPOPOS and so on.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I'm also curious what smart contracts look like for the language that you must know or learn in order to be able to write them. Is it like Ethereum where you need to know JavaScript, or do you need to learn Rust or something else?
Yeah, so smart contracts here are following Bitcoin model, right? So it's still UTXO, and a contract is basically about lock-in prop, right? So what's a program besides in order for funds to be unlocked, right? So it's pretty much like Bitcoin, but the approach is different. So the high-level language is called Ergo script, and it's basically logic language, right? So you basically combine different conditions when funds can be unlocked, and we even have visual tooling, right, where you can combine different blocks visually, like building multi-sig schemes and attaching time conditions, then some conditions on input, outs, and so on. And the initially such tool was for multi-sig, and yeah, currently I'm in India, in New Delhi currently, but a few years ago I've been to Jaipur, where the Ergo community sponsored its unstoppable hackathon at some local university. And so some guys developed this visual tool, so hopefully it will be released quickly. So now you can develop quite complex conditions visually, so without any coding.
Is there any?
Yeah. So
I'm not sure if
so
you
sorry.
addressed it directly. Like, if I know C++, can I write Ergo contracts?
So if you know any high-level language like C, Java, yeah, so you can write Ergo script quite quickly. And what's also good, so it's 2025, and many people are writing codes via so-called vibe coding, right? And well, from initial experiments, Ergo script is quite friendly to vibe coding, and currently we are discussing how to make LLM-based contract audits. And yeah, well, the initial results are also quite exciting, because it's a very simple approach, right, to defining programmable money via Ergo script. And then you can give not so much instructions to a coding agent, actually coding, but code auditing agent, right? To quite good in quality audit of Ergo script code done automatically. on some issues in contracts I've done by myself with LLM-based approach. So yeah, we are currently discussing this in developers chats, and I will publish some results after collecting community input also. Yeah, there will be some articles published. So yeah, I think it would be quite amazing to have people building more or less secure contracts, simple and also secure, without even touching the code, maybe, right? Just via visual no-code tooling or coding agents.
Yeah, that would be cool. Also, how good is the privacy? You mentioned that you have something like a coin join with ZeroJoin at the protocol level. And how does it compare with the privacy in Zcash or Monero?
Oh, so it's optional privacy, right? And quite loose. So you basically have privacy like in Bitcoin, just without interactions, right? If you are using join, for example. But that actually does matter a lot, because when I visited some financial cryptography, even back in 2020, so I had some talks with guys working in forensics, right? The other side of things. And so they worked even back then on the anonymization of Bitcoin mixer users by over a network layer mostly, right? So by getting meta from network packages going to mix, right? So then to eliminate this networking layer at all. And actually, it's the same with Monero or Zcash, right? So most of efforts similarly are about watching or networking based on arrests in the for example, it was the case few place operators were arrested, and yeah, from public information, it seems what's foreign.
Alex, I think you're dropping out. Your connection is not stable. Can you hear me? Your video is frozen. I guess he'll drop out and come back. This is what happens in a live setting. I apologize to everyone who's here and in the chat and listening to this. But I also want to thank to the almost 1,000 people who watched this on live stream. It's always amazing to see that even though I do these interviews back to back in a very short amount of time, I've had 3 of them in 2 days, basically. And it's also exhausting for myself. It's a lot of content that I put out there. I'm going to make sure to space it a bit on Spotify during the uploads to give people a couple of days to listen to the latest one. But where am I going with this? Yeah, I'm proud of you guys. I'm happy that I enjoyed this kind of success among nerds on the internet, because at the end of the day, this podcast is all about just one nerd on the internet talking from his bedroom with other nerds around the world who are thinking about how to fix the money all day long. And he's back. Let me admit him once again. I'm really sorry, Alex. I'm not sure if you can hear me. Your connection, I guess,
Yeah,
is
so
not stable.
for some reason, hotel ended my session, so I had to start another networking session. So yeah, that just some hotel network rules. Yeah, so I've got disconnected automatically and had to start a new session. Sorry for that. Yeah, I'm in some hotel, as explained. And I hope that noisy street is not so noisy, so the noise is suppressed also. So yeah, I'm traveling and yeah, conditions are a little bit harsh. I'm sorry for that.
It's fine. My front light also died, and I'm very obscure right now. But it's fine. It's been 2.5 hours since we started doing this, and
Yeah. So where it got aborted? Let's start from that point.
so the last point I think was on privacy.
Oh yeah, privacy. So yeah, it's non-custodial, non-interactive mixer, which is already better than Bitcoin mixers, right? Because you are not surveilled for your interactions with mixer coordinator. But then we have more contracts application level, right? So to have something like Monero or Zcash, you need for core support, right? To enforce people to certain kind of privacy, like in Monero, but we are not fond of doing that because you probably need to do hard forking all the time, like Monero doing, right? And so as explained before, well, there is desire to avoid hard forks at any cost. But then, yeah, in addition to ZeroJoin mixer, there is support for stealth addresses. There are some wallets supporting stealth addresses, right? So you can have recipient anonymity just. More tooling possible. Well, there is research here all the time, and well, what could be good, I think, is to have somewhat private off-chain cache, right, with on-chain reserves. Because, well, another idea behind optional privacy here is, well, sometimes you don't need for privacy, right? And sometimes you demand for transparency. For example, if you put money into some charity, right, you don't expect for privacy of spending. You expect for transparency, right, here. And so if you have some on-chain reserves for off-chain cash, for example, and this is very important example, it could be, as we discussed before, yeah, it's one of hopes for, well, large-scale adoption. So yeah, in this setting, yeah, it's better to have reserves also, right, transparent on-chain reserves with private cache. Those reserves are backing.
I also want to ask you, when you decided to do the monetary policy, what is the max supply, if there's any, and how you're
So
approaching scarcity, and also if there was any pre-mine.
so yeah, it's more or less like in Bitcoin. So it's kept supply. Then yeah, the difference is this emission. It's not hard coded as in Bitcoin. The idea here was to make everything contractual, right? And so emission is also a contract. Emission to miners, and instead of pre-mine, it was emission to somewhat treasury, because unfortunately, even back in 2019, it was quite clear that you cannot launch a cryptocurrency without heavily sponsoring it, right? So centralized exchanges already asked for money back then, as well as wallets and so on. It's even worse these days. So maybe you know about recent standoff of Jonathan with Binance, right? Because Binance is not listing Caspa even, and yeah, it's not listing proof of work assets years to the month, because currently charging not just fixed amount, which big enough community somehow are.
Did you stop to think, or did you end your sentence?
Yes, so on my side it was connection lost message again. Sorry. So yeah, so Binance now is not charging just fixed amount, but percent of supply, right? And it's about from last I heard about 8%. So no any chance fair enough proof of work assets can be there, right? Casper and so on, and this is insane. So yeah, because of that, there was some emission going to treasury, but only for listings and integration. So there was no any team allocation, which was quite full, right? Because yeah, often developers asked for some allocation, and it was hard to reject such demands. But yeah, there were no any team allocations or any allocations. So there was some oversight for spendings, and yeah, some financial reports were published, and the rest would be published hopefully. Just someone needs to take care of that. There are accounting books showing that no allocations and so on. So yeah, well, in 2025 it's even more important. Yeah, so as I told, now there is trends of retail being upset, right, with all those team allocations and VC allocations. So there were no VCs here, right? So it was purely grassroots launch.
That's nice. Usually people try to find justifications and say, well, since we got some investors and we have some developers, we should give them like 5% or something.
Oh man, it's super messy, you know, because when yes, someone else is greasing developers, well, may expect the same here. So it took a lot of efforts to spread message, you know, that things are quite different. But yeah, there was also a desire to be different from starters, right? To be like Bitcoin or Monero. Actually, I'm big fan of Monero as a movement, right? As kind of community which is capable to do everything well, also to do active development, right? To get exchanges, marketing and so on, without any clear consolidated ruling party, right? This always was exciting to me. I don't know. So, what do you think about this? I've seen some tweets of yours in regards with this distinction between Monero and Zcash, for example, right? So Zcash has some, you know, entities which are making rules basically, and in Monero it's kind of anarchist kind of community, right?
Well, so I'm not sure exactly what I should answer to this question, but I do like the difference between them and the fact that they're not trying to solve the same problem in the same way. I think that Zcash started as a fork of Bitcoin with the intention to improve the privacy of Bitcoin as proposed by Zero Cash, except that Zero Cash was not enabled on Bitcoin, mostly because of the trusted setup. So they needed the funding to be able to remove that trusted setup and refine the protocol to make it scalable, because they started from this point of best privacy, but it did not scale and did not work on most devices. You couldn't use it unless you were running your own full node, and it was not user friendly. It was cypherpunk, but not ready for mass adoption. I think now, after 9 years, it's finally ready for mass adoption. It's finally what it was supposed to be and what we were hoping that Bitcoin would be, with the extra problem that Bitcoin does not want it anymore. And that's why I promote it so much, because I hope that Bitcoiners will take a look at it and reconsider. Monero, on the other hand, is reactionary to Bitcoin. And they came out with CryptoNode as a response to the limitations of Bitcoin, and with the intentions to launch a competitor for Bitcoin. So the way that I see it, it's like a different beast. It's not the same code base. It's not compatible with Bitcoin. On the other hand, it uses a lot of the Bitcoin research. For example, the bulletproofs and Dandelion and the confidential transactions, and a lot of the stuff was built by Blockstream researchers or just people looking for ways to add more privacy to Bitcoin. Their claim to fame right now is the full chain membership proofs, which is possibly the first time when they come up with something really original. And it's also the most ambitious project that they've had so far.
You know, the problem with Monero style development, the top level research is very expensive. So when I first met Zuko back in early 2015, so he told me some he put personally in the research, right? So before raising funds, so he spent, I don't whether I can tell numbers, but yeah, very significant numbers he had to pay from his own pockets, right? And yeah, often it's not possible, right, to pay well big amounts from pocket professors, right, with a huge risk of getting non-commercial results at the end, right? Let's say. So then, yeah, I think the choice of Zcash in regards with organizing development is fully understandable. Yeah, it's appreciated also. So they advancing research in certain areas quite significantly, and yeah, quite fast also. So yeah, that does worth it after all.
Yeah, and Zcash doesn't have a pre-mine, but they have this 20% allocation, which in the beginning was a reward for the founders in the first 4 years. And then in the next 4 years, they decided they should give it to the developers. So they called it like the dev fund. And they have these bodies which organize around this dev fund, and they decide where they should allocate it and what they should be paying for to get built, but also pay for something which is controversial but I think interesting, which is political lobbying. They pay organizations like Coin Center and others in Washington, D.C. I think that the main goal of this is to not go to jail for building privacy tech, which obviously is a big concern when you're building something that anyone can use to do nefarious actions, but it's also useful. So, from what I've seen a couple of days ago at the SEC, it's useful for getting these actors in political office to admit that privacy is normal and is useful and is something that the average person should have on the basis of the Fourth Amendment of the US Constitution, which is your right to remain silent and not give information to the government about what you're doing. So if they are able to pull this off and they do make it look like privacy is the new norm, then it will be politically safe for Bitcoin to also add privacy, which I think is the way to go. They're playing this 4D chess all the time where you're not sure if they're just pumping their token or also pushing for research or also helping Bitcoin or just trying to talk to politicians. And I like it. Monero is in a different mindset. They're just saying, well, we want to be cypherpunks and we want to launch this protocol. We don't care who uses it. We don't care what they use it for. And whenever there is a case like last week, I sort of argued that they're cheap because it took a few days for their full chain membership proofs developer Justin Berman to get funded. But they were able to mobilize and fund him in a couple of days after I was under fire for calling them cheap. So that's something admirable. They're able to organize, but honestly, I don't think there's anything more important in Monero right now than full chain membership proofs. And they should not be
Right.
cheap about it.
Right. That's true. So yeah, well, that's the difference. So Monero is using research. The cryptography somehow got right trees. So FCMP is based on curve trees, and curve trees were not researched for Monero specifically. Probably, I'm not sure about that. Need to recheck the paper. But yeah, that's a very interesting perspective, right? Is indeed kind of like a community of pirates, right? Like free individuals, island.
I think your connection is once again unstable, Alex. You said Monero are kind of pirates, a community of free individuals, and then you sort of dropped out. I guess he's frozen again. Anyway, until he comes back, and I'm not sure if he can hear me, but I'm sure he will come back. I just want to remind you that this show and this episode is sponsored by SiteShift and Bitcoin.com News and Layer 2 Labs, Noans.com, Unstoppable Wallet. Are you back, Alex?
Yeah, so the hotel is doing the same games again. So I don't know. It's an have to restart it. I don't know why. About emission. So basically, it's the same in Ergo. So there is no pre-mine, but for first 2 years and a half, there was emission, but not to founders, even for integrations, right? And to pay all those bastards from centralized exchanges. Actually, was over the long term, because over the long term, most of centralized exchanges we paid for disappeared simply, right? So that they got shut down or just for founders of exchanges shut down exchanges and so on. So yeah, that's very nasty. But the same principle, and actually I did consult with Zuko. Uh, uh, in regards with all those things back in 2017. So I even invited him to be kind of advisor, but we don't have any established structure after all. But yeah, he was busy with Zcash stuff, but provided some insightful information. In particular, in regards with emission and so on. So initially, for example, we had an idea to copy this slow start. Zuko advised against that.
Okay. I'm not sure if you dropped out once again or you just stopped.
It's fine now. So I think I've said about emission and Zika, all that stuff. I actually think both are admirable, right? Both are interesting, Monero, Zcash. So I don't get those wars I see sometimes over the crypto Twitter, but crypto Twitter loves drama, loves wars. So that's unavoidable then.
Oh, I'm fine with it as long as it doesn't resort to threats and stuff like, oh, I would love to see you getting your ass kicked in a boxing ring, which someone from Monero told me a few days ago. I mean, the future that I think about a lot is one where we are all free to choose whatever we think is best for ourselves, and we can put our money in various projects and see which one is going to succeed. Not, well, let's see if I can kick your ass because I don't like your opinion. I'm just an internet nerd. I express opinions. I don't think there should be any violence. I definitely don't wish violence upon anyone.
Yeah. Very important. But yeah, I mean, it's totally fine that people do have different opinions, right? Especially as well, not so much good information in the space, right? Simply people have time from my observations to document things properly, even so. The history of cryptocurrencies as well as the present moment is very mythical, right? So people inventing all the time instead of getting to properly done history because it's documented, unfortunately. But yeah, about assets. So yeah, I think it's fine to have multiple assets. Yeah, especially if they are work backed, right? So why not? So after all, it's about electricity converted, right, into very interesting forms of money, actually, right? Forms of assets where you get your electricity converted in some in a pool of some digital economy ecosystems, right? And then you have different ecosystems, different economies. I believe they should be interconnected. That's I'm fond of bridging everything with trust minimized approach, bridging especially different proof of work assets, right? And to see different economies interacting, right? Not confronting each other.
I do see the value in conflicts in the sense that they push people to get better, to improve their protocols, to prove to the others that, look, I actually care and you claimed that this was going to be a scam and I'm actually working on it and there is some value here. So I do like it, but at the same time, there should be some limits that we need to understand because the greater enemy is actually central banking, is infinite money printing, is the state that has an army that they can just deploy upon us and put an end to all of this beautiful dreaming about how we can fix the world. So yeah, we need to optimize for these threats and also for other types of private crime, which are horrible. I'm not sure if optimize for or optimize against is the term. I'm sure that someone's gonna clip that and put it out of context, but anyway. The peaceful revolution, that's what I
Yeah, and
signed up for.
yeah, about bridging everything. So there is a Rosen bridge on Ergo now connecting Bitcoin, Cardano, Ethereum, Binance Smart Chain. And there are some community efforts from Firo community as well as Caspa to bring those blockchains also to this bridge. So then all those networks are interconnected. And then Rosenbridge guys are working with the help of some guys from Monero community to make a bridge for Monero. And I think it would be quite big, right? So it's ergo-centric bridge. It's using Ergo as a data layer, right? But then, yeah, it's if you, for example, get in Monero integrated, then from Monero, you can go to any of chains mentioned and back. Be quite big deal, I believe, because well, centralized exchanges are in complex relationships with Monero. Let's say delisting bias and exchanges list Monero. And so I think Monero should be on decentralized exchanges like Unit, PancakeSwap, and so on. It would be good for on-ramp, right? It would be good to get Monero on most exchanges in unstoppable way because currently we have exchanges like Coinbase, for example, allowing to buy any asset on Base or some other chains also, and there are other centralized exchanges allowing you to buy from MM pools on decentralized exchanges on some blockchains directly, right, from a centralized exchange UI using centralized exchange on-ramp options. That this would be good, right? This is unstoppable, and this would provide more on-ramp options for Monero. So I'm quite excited about this. So hopefully after FCMP fork, we can get this quickly enough, right, to have unstoppable on-ramp options for Monero.
Right now I'm thinking if there's anything about Ergo that I wanted to ask and I did not so far. Is there anything that you want to mention about it that maybe we haven't?
Oh, so maybe it's about peer-to-peer Fi, right? So people do think that smart contracts are about the same. So on Ethereum, Ergo, and so on. So they are done in the same way. But with UTXO, these are
Oh, you dropped out again. I guess it's the hotel policy. I guess you need to restart your connection. I'm not sure if you can still hear this. But in the meantime, I see that we've had a bunch of comments in the chat.
right.
And
Yeah, I'm again. So
oh, you're back. That's good. You can
yeah,
continue now.
yeah, I now can do this in 2 seconds. Reconnect, rejoin the hotel session. Here we can have peer-to-peer Fi with UTXO design of Ergo blockchain. Means, for example, that's how Ergo Mixer works, right? So you create your UTXO, I create mine, right? And to satisfy them, one needs to create a mixing transaction, right? And there is no any central smart contracts like all the smart contracts are actually done in Ethereum, right? So in Ethereum, yeah, this would be about centralized contract like Tornado Cash with all the pros and cons. So most of smart contracts on Ethereum do have some admin keys, freeze button, and so on. And as a user, you don't really need for that, right? So you need to create your financial tool. For example, bonds. We have peer-to-peer bonds application, and in this application, so there is direct interaction between borrower and lender, right? So there is no any centralized monolithic contract, right? With admin keys, freeze button, or whatever. So it's just about peer-to-peer interactions over the blockchain also. So this often missed, but I think this is very important for building self-sovereign unstoppable finance, right? It should be about peer-to-peer interactions on top of the blockchain also.
Okay. It sounds interesting. Where do you see this going in 5 to 10 years?
Oh, so I think I hope proof of work blockchains would attract more attention, right? Especially, well, in a few years we will have a lot of idle GPUs obsolete for AI purposes. Uh, so not so useful there anymore, and they will enter mining, I believe, after all. Right, then I'm thinking about interconnected blockchains. Uh, yeah, well, it's good for everyone, right, to have more on-ramp options everywhere, unstoppable, decentralized on-ramp options. Then, yeah, well, I hope to see more privacy on Ergo and everywhere. Right. Then, yeah, well, recently there was launch of more features in regards with co-utilization, but still unstoppable algorithmic, uncontrollable stablecoin use on Ergo, and I hope that would provide more value in different arbitrage around blockchains. And I hope, we will develop tools which are more capital efficient, but still unstoppable and decentralized. Then, well, for off-chain cash, I have a lot of hopes to see more good chain cash options, especially with possibility to create credits, right, between peers. That means you can create money in a grassroots fashion, right? So if I have trust to you, then I can provide some credits, right, to you personally without the system enforcing us to do that. And then by combining on-chain reserves and off-chain peer-to-peer credits, I think we can get elastic money supply and thriving digital economies backed by on-chain assets, right? As kind of reserve animal trust. Then what else? Then for sidechain, so we also have different ideas here in Ergo ecosystem, including merged mine sidechain with double mining, so Bitcoin plus Ergo merged mine.
Interesting. So the Bitcoin miners would get both tokens.
So yeah, the both Bitcoin and Ergo miners would get a token of that double merged mine sidechain, and between Ergo and this would be trustless pack contracts already done. And then there are some option for pegging with Bitcoin already known, right? So then, it's like trustless bridging through this side chain. And a lot of interesting ideas can be done here. So I can share maybe our Twitter some paper about that, about this double matching ideas. So that's I think promising directions in building real world adoption, right? So I'm not fond of banksterization of Bitcoin, right? So when banksters are coming, they're making things worse, right? So streets around the planet still have trillions in value they can create. So why to sell as to banksters? I mean, even money wise, it's not a good choice because as we can see, banks, funds, they are playing quite dirty games with retail in Bitcoin also, right, these days. So it's better to create tools to tools for streets to create value, right? To create value in communities and to trade between communities using blockchain reserves as reserve asset with right? So to actually fulfill the original ideas of Satoshi and friends from 2010.
Yeah, I love it. This is what it's supposed to be about. At the same time, yesterday or last night, I interviewed David Bailey, and he's sort of responsible for bringing this wave of bankers and politicians into Bitcoin, first with his conferences and then with his strategic Bitcoin reserve proposal, and then what's it called? Bitcoin backed companies? No, I think, what is it? Bitcoin treasury companies. Okay. So all of this degeneracy, which is downstream of the fiat system that we forgot we were trying to replace, I see it as just a phase. I don't think it's gonna be like this forever. I think these suits are just gonna make their money and then leave. They're gonna dump their bags and look for the next big or interesting thing that's gonna increase their US dollar holdings. But it does bring some extra attention, and unfortunately, the average person will not care about this unless there is some legitimation from politicians and bankers. And they're not gonna say it's legit up until the moment when this is possible. And it's sad, really. I really wish we could have the grassroots adoption as opposed to the top down adoption, waiting for some sort of authority to tell us, well, Bitcoin is interesting and is good and has been performing pretty well over the last 16 years. I don't know if there's any solution to this. It's just that we are in this phase where we're talking about Bitcoin as a collateral asset, as digital gold, as something that can be used to borrow US dollars against. I don't like it too much. We're not making Bitcoin useful for payments. And there are people working on it, but not nearly enough people caring about it.
Right. So I think it's not bad to have Bitcoin as collateral, just not for banksters, right? So let's Bitcoin be collateral in interactions. So by well having unstoppable trust minimized derivatives. So yeah, that's I think show for focus should be right in the space.
Is there anything that gets you super excited about this space and you think might be the future? Is it DAGs? Is it ZK Snarks or ZK Starks?
So I think all of it. Me, that's.
Oh no, I think your connection is playing tricks again. I hope you remember the question and you reconnect to the call. I apologize to everyone. It's, I guess, by this point, more than 1,000 people tuned into this live stream, which is really nice. And I thank you guys and I appreciate it. And don't forget to also subscribe and tell people about the show if you like it. And we're just waiting for Alex. Yeah, you're back.
Yeah, so I think they have some automated system, to drop connection when it lasts for long enough time. So I've seen that in some hotels around the world. So to me, those techniques from cryptography, distributed systems, and so they're just building blocks, and we need to be focused on producing good money, right? Well, with the supply which is needed, right? With the supply we have demand for from streets around the world. The demand we have from grassroots movements, right? So yeah, all cryptography is good here. So Starks, FCMP, and so I mean those are just that there are hundreds of them, and they're appearing quickly. They're getting obsolete often, also quite quickly. So yeah, let's have more and more of them, but those are just building blocks, right? And we need to be concentrated on how to produce good money in bulk based on best known kind of reserve assets, so proof of work cryptocurrencies, right? Because after all, digital gold with limited supply and cautious protocol development, forking policies. So yeah, it's quite superior to gold. It could be, right? Even.
Yeah, the conversation is that we're gonna flip gold in a few years, and that means like going up 30 something X from here.
Yeah, but then there are certain things which must be here, like fixing supply, right? And yeah, so as we discussed, then we need to go through different roads when talking about long-term stability in the presence of tail emission and so on. So yeah, I mean it's complicated story, but yeah, well, all the blocks here are not that crazy, right? And quite doable. So yeah, I'm quite optimistic about the space, but I think also, you know, as we don't have any regulation here, basically, globally, so we will have depression times sometimes, and that's also quite okay, because that's what do we need to get out of garbage, right, in this space. So well, fortunately, we don't have, you know, like states regulation which is telling, oh, get this asset out of space, or get that asset out of space. So yeah, it's self-regulated happily, but then yeah, sometimes we need to get through harsh times, right, of depression, when yeah, bad assets are failing and good assets are surviving.
Oh, I disagree with you slightly there. I don't think the state should make any regulations to tell us what should exist and what should not, what is legit and what is not. The market will find its way, but unfortunately, the Ponzi's and the scams are very attractive, and they will have this casino user base, I guess. People who just want to gamble and they're like, I either make 1,000x on this or I lose everything, I don't care. There is this sort of mentality. There's nothing that's gonna stop it. But it's also important to have education. And I know everyone talks about education. Even the gamblers, they say they provide education. But to really be able to distinguish between what is legit and what is horrible and you should not look at it. I think I gotta give credit to the Bitcoin maximalists because they were able to distinguish, but their way of distinguishing is that only their asset is the legit one and everything else must be a shitcoin. But they still have this mantra of 99.9% of altcoins being shitcoins, which, if you look at CoinMarketCap and they have like a few thousand assets, still leaves room for at least 50 legit ones. And I ask even the most toxic Bitcoin maximalists who join my show, I ask them, can you name like 3 or 5 altcoins that you think are legit and not scams? And sometimes they outright make a list. Other times they just say something vague like, well, if they've been around for a few years and they still have users and they survived bear markets, then it's probably a good sign that they're not scams. So it sort of becomes obvious. But that's also Ethereum. So if you ask them, is Ethereum a scam? They're going to say, yeah, of course. It has this 70% pre-mine and ta 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 ta. So yeah, it's hard to find the signal in all of this noise. But I think a good way, a good northern star that I use, beyond the recommendations that people give, in your case it was Jonathan who said I should interview you. It's also papers that are published. This is usually a good sign. But once again, you can game academia and you can basically publish bullshit by paying the journals. And some people do that. So it's not the only metric. But also actually building something and having ideas which maybe are not the most mainstream, but still are trying to experiment with stuff. My girlfriend just brought this to me, I guess for the purpose of showing it to the camera. She modified my iPhone case. I bought this orange case and she drew this Pepe of me on it. Actually, not drew, she painted it.
Pepe. That's quite funny.
I also have this in the background. Is it like this? Yeah. So yeah, very funny. I wish I had the front light, which died, but I can turn it on. It charged like 50%. I can fix my video. Okay, now you can see this in all of its beauty.
All right, nice, yeah.
I have the fanciest iPhone case right now. I put my phone in it, and boom, I'm good to go. I guess she can customize these for people who want them. How much do you charge for this, Ani?
10.
10 what?
Euro.
Euro?
Yeah.
What, for painting? What? That's very cheap. I got it. talk about business with her. Anyway, yeah, it's cool, and she just gave this to me. But it's very hard, as I was saying, to distinguish signal from noise, and you need to have like benchmarks or some criteria for something that is useful. And also ideology is important. Like if people are here for the right intentions. You can have very smart people just trying to milk retail and just dump some sort of shitcoin on users who realize that they're smart and there's something to it. I think the red guy who created Bitcoin private is a good example of this, very bright, but he was not honest with what he's building and he just created something with a hidden pre-mine so that he can get rich and basically disappear. Do you remember
All
Bitcoin
right. Yeah.
private?
Oh, not much. I remember the first CryptoNotes deployment. What
Bitcoin.
Bytecoin? Yeah. So, yeah, I think this Bytecoin versus Monero is clear example why ideology is important, right? And why a movement is also important. So you have ideas, then you get people sharing them, right? And then is unstoppable force, right? So when you have Satoshi with some ideas, right? So one guy can be just hit by car one day or whatever, like everyone is dying after all, right? So the again, ideas do matter, right? So once Satoshi published white paper and expressed a little bit more ideas over the forum, so uh, different people joined, right? So then developed those ideas, maybe come with own and on. So
Oh man, your hotel must really hate our conversation right here. I hope at least someone's watching from the hotel staff and is able to learn something new and they're gaming, they're toying with your internet connection. My front light died once again. It was not supposed to last only a couple of minutes, I think. I'm gonna have to charge it again. I'm sorry. So, yeah, we're just waiting for Alex to come back. We have been running for more than 3 hours, which was unexpected. When we first started, I realized that he likes to give brief answers. You hear me, Alex, right now?
yeah, perfectly.
So when we first started this interview, I was thinking, oh, this guy doesn't like to talk too much. I think it's gonna be short. But I'm pleasantly surprised. Like you're a treasure. When I interviewed Vitalik, it was the same. He said he only has 2 hours, but he stayed for free and he gave full answers to every question. And that's something I respect.
Yeah, but actually I'm super tired because I spent previous night on a train from Jaipur to Delhi. Yeah, so and I need to get to airport. Uh, yeah, but I have some time. But yeah, let's maybe wrap it up. So I will have more conversations in future. And yeah, well, I believe there are always a lot of ideas to discuss here, right? So this space is very fruitful, so you can discuss a lot of topics from, I don't know, like concrete cryptographic schemes or consensus protocol properties to very philosophical ideas, right? Well, political philosophical ideas, starting from free markets, right? Uh, discussing various works and so on. Are you quite following this dark fi space? No, not really.
I'm gonna have like a marathon live stream on New Year's Eve with Amir Taki. If you want, you can also
Uh,
drop in to say hello to him. So I
All
do
right.
follow from afar. I can't say that I open their webpage very often. The last time I was on it, I looked at the chat that he built. And I like that he takes his time with it. But at the same time, he said, so last year he said it was going to launch in a few months, and it's been a year, and he still hasn't launched it. And Amir has to prove a lot because he's very well known for starting projects which are good ideas, but he's not
Yeah.
very good at finishing them.
So it's not about finishing. So from what I've seen from checking source code regularly, there is a lot of rewrites, right, of one piece after another. So that they pivoting a lot, but they haven't raised any funds from retail or VCs, so that they cannot be judged for that, right? So it's their own business to rewrite code all the time. But yeah, from what I've seen, it's still uh, far from being in production. But yeah, what's interesting about them? So every Wednesday they're organizing philosophical meeting rooms over dark IRC, discussing different works in regards with philosophy and political matters, all that stuff. So that's very interesting. That's I believe how community should be built, right? So you need to share ideas and find like-minded people around and build them. After all.
Yeah, this is the good way to launch it. But I'm just an impatient nerd, sorry. That's all.
All right. So anything else to discuss?
How can people keep up with what's happening in Ergo, and what's a good way? I usually, when I talk with people and they have their own coin and it's proof of work, I don't tell my listeners, okay, go ahead and buy it. I tell them mine it. That's very educational. It can help you learn how the network works. You can understand from there if you want to spend more time with it or not, but just try to mine it. That's a good way to get started if you're interested. But how can people keep up with what's happening in Ergo? What's the best way to follow the project?
Oh, so there are a lot of resources. So currently there are two websites made by different fractions in the community. So ergoplatform.org, ergoblockchain.org. Then we have Telegram groups, a lot of them you can find on those websites. We have Reddit, Twitter. There is some Ergo platform Twitter with 60,000 subscribers. Then this new one, Ergo, with few thousand still, but yeah, it's just like 2 months old. Then yeah, personal Twitters like mine and so on. So yeah, Joe Armenios to follow on Twitter. So yeah, a lot of voices actually we have around, and yeah, it's getting more and more diverse. So I hope after all we will have diverse movements like in Bitcoin or Monero. Bitcoin like is quite challenging, right, for an engineer because you have a lot of opinions and a little chance to modify anything. But at the same time, it's also exciting, right, when you you are basically providing backbone for a variety of ideas, right? Unstoppable backbone where people with very different ideas can come and yeah, broadcast the ideas and build in isolation and together. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the most powerful part, the permissionless building. Just anyone can show up anytime and do something amazing without asking for anyone's permission. Okay,
Okay,
Alex.
so
Thank you very much
yeah,
for your time and for
yeah,
your energy and for your input. I hope that everyone learned something new today.
yeah.
And
Thank you a lot. Also, so it seems yeah, we are sharing a lot of values.
well, you know, if you stick around for such a long time and you did not exit, right? Sell your bags and move to some island and buy your Lambo and whatever. I think it's a good sign that you're here for the right intentions. And it's something that I respect when people stick around and they try new stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway,
So
thank you very
thank you.
much for everyone out there. Try to mine Ergo, see if you can do it. Is it CPU or GPU mineable?
It's a GPU, so mine it, buy it, study it, and communicate with us, bring your ideas, your applications, and so on. So yeah, let's be together.
Okay. Thank you very much, Alex. Once again, you can follow him on Twitter at Chepurnoy. It's exactly how you see the name in the title of this video and audio on Spotify. And thank you very much. I'll see you in the next one.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. Bye.